We will also make the recording and the slides that we're using available to you all, those of you who have attended, as well as others who weren't able to make it with us today. So my name is Holly Lawrence, and I'm the Assistant Dean for the Office of Career Success here in the Eisenberg School. And I'm delighted to be with you today to hear from two presenters from our team who are going to be talking to you about getting your LinkedIn profile up to date. So I will introduce them and then we'll turn things over to them to give the presentation. I'll be monitoring the chat. If you have a question or comment at any point, feel free to drop it in the chat and we can address it on the spot, but we'll also have time at the end for your questions as well. So first, I'd like to introduce Nicholas Wegman. Nick is the Executive Director of Chase Career Center in the Office of Career Success. And also Rachel Snyder. She is one of our career coaches in the Office of Career Success and Chase Career Center. She's also an alum of the online MBA program. So she has been where you are. I'll turn things over to Rachel now. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks so much, Holly, for that introduction, and for Nick for joining us as well. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon, and I appreciate very much your time, as I know for a lot of you, this is probably smack dab in the middle of the workday. LinkedIn is a topic that's near and dear to me, not because I'm someone who loves being on social media myself, but because of the efficacy of this tool as it relates to the recruiting process. So I'm excited to share some information with you today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, so a little bit quickly about making the case for LinkedIn. We're going to focus a lot today on the recruiter perspective, on branding, on using LinkedIn as a digital brochure to support your candidacy, but important to understand who's on it and why they're on it. For example, 196,000 UMass Amherst profiles and 27,000 in the UMass official alumni group alone. So some big instant networks that we have there that we'll absolutely want to be tapping into. Over 57 million company profiles from over 200 countries and over 774 million members on LinkedIn as of April 2021. Why is it important as it relates to the job search, among other things? Well, 87% of recruiters use it to vet candidates before deciding whether or not they'll bring them in for an interview. I typically say that the other 13% just didn't take the survey because I've never met a recruiter that doesn't use LinkedIn to really sort of get a feel that, you know, the black and white resume simply can't do. LinkedIn is about the opportunity to differentiate, about the opportunity to make an interpersonal connection with the reader or your potential employer. And so really, really important that we're branding thoughtfully within the platform. 14 million job postings as of April 2021. And I threw up some soft skills here. Sought by recruiters in 2020. These are the top 5 soft skills sought by recruiters in 2020. And I think oftentimes we neglect, you know, we're so focused on our technical proficiency, we're focused on our hard skills, like financial valuation and modeling, that we can sometimes forget the importance of modeling and reflecting these skill sets as well. So just a little bit of information there. Number 1 tech skill, just for fun, Python, not by recruiters, not in the United States. Python is the number 1 sought skill at this point by recruiters as of 2020. So I'll keep an eye on that data. One resource I wanted to be sure that I incorporated in is iConnect. This is our new career and professional development platform. We're incredibly excited about it. And if you haven't already logged in and explored some of the resources available to you there, I would definitely suggest that you do. I will, as Holly mentioned, be providing the slide set after the presentation, and I have put in some hyperlinks and things like that. It's a little bit image heavy, but on purpose so that you can use it for a reference after the fact. But within iConnect, especially if you go into the MBA section, you're going to find a number of resources that can be very helpful to you as it relates to this conversation. For anyone on the call who may not have used LinkedIn before, who is looking to create a profile for the first time, maybe wants to know a little bit more about that recruiter perspective, the Networking and LinkedIn Guide will be very, very helpful to you. But this is also where you can find the Eisenberg LinkedIn Alumni Group, a group I'm going to talk about a little bit later that I definitely suggest you join. And by the way, you do not have to be an alum to join this group. This is a networking group for both current students and alum who have gone before. So again, great instant network for you to follow. The other tool is a very simple Excel sort of database, if you will, that the Career Center has built to allow you to have sort of a repository, a place to keep your information as you're utilizing LinkedIn, you're finding jobs you'd like to apply to, you're connecting with relevant alumni, things like that. It can be, when finals kick up and we've got case studies and discussions and work and family, it's a lot. And when your activity kicks up a bit, really helpful to have something like this to keep yourself organized. You'll also be able to access LinkedIn Learning there. LinkedIn Learning is one of the most amazing, underutilized tools right now. UMass has a beta right now. I'm hoping it's not a beta, but it's an online library of in-depth courses that we can now access for free, over 15,000 of them. And we're going to be talking a little bit about this later on in the presentation, but LinkedIn Learning is a fantastic way for you to show your recruiters your continuing professional development, to upskill as a means to compete and differentiate in what is, a tough market, certainly. But it's also going to be a platform that allows you to badge directly to your LinkedIn profile, allowing things to be shared to your timeline. And if you've spent any time on LinkedIn, you've probably seen people pretty proud of their badges, especially in the areas of technical proficiency. I selected Python here just as an example. But once you go into LinkedIn Learning, you'll be absolutely amazed at everything that it has there to offer. So let's move into just some best practices for our profile. Again, that Networking and LinkedIn Guide will be very helpful to you. We're going to spend some time talking about privacy settings. And this isn't just about privacy or protecting your data. This is using the system and it's sort of the data that you're going to put into it. LinkedIn is intuitive. And so the better the information that you load in, the more relevant to your goal, the more relevant to your intentions, the better the information it's going to give you. And there are some settings that we can adjust on the back end to ensure that you're seeing everything and recruiters are seeing everything that we want them to. We're going to take a look at how to utilize the job section to indicate your career intent, the importance of having a professional photo. This is a question I get constantly, so I'll just mention it quickly. You do not have to have a professional headshot for your LinkedIn photo. It simply needs to be professional in nature. So no obvious selfies, no cropping anybody out. But if you know someone with an iPhone, step outside on a day you're feeling good and have them take a nice photo of you. I won't share the statistics on how much that will increase the number of people looking at your profile, but it's important. We want to include relevant keywords, skills, and industry jargon. You hear a lot about applicant tracking systems as it relates to our resumes, but LinkedIn profiles can absolutely go through applicant tracking systems themselves as well. So there's one piece of this that we're going to be looking at, and that is the data sort of technology piece, making the system work for you. And the other, sort of lens I apply to this is the branding. When recruiters are reviewing our LinkedIn profile, we want to be reflecting the things that they are seeking. We want to be specifically indicating skills, experiences, education, as it aligns with our goal or our intention. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to do that effectively. Very important that we don't just duplicate our resumes. First person narrative is critically important, as it is an opportunity to really show off clear communication skills. It used to be that we would have to submit writing samples before an interview. Thankfully, we don't do that anymore, but they're always looking for ways to, sort of ways to gauge your comfortability and style in terms of your communication. So keep that in mind. Important that we customize our vanity URL and then add that hyperlink to resume. In an economy such as this, it's critically important that we make it as easy as possible for a recruiter or future employer to access this information. And so we'll take a look a little bit later at how we can do that. You can attach resumes and other media. So if you have data visualizations, we've done a lot of case studies in the MBA program. We've done a lot of, VLOOKUPs and pivot tables and all different things like that. Recruiters absolutely love the visual appeal. It's almost like you're providing evidence for them on a silver platter of what your capabilities are. And so keep that in mind too, a very, very cool feature about LinkedIn, and update it regularly. Public profile settings. I want to spend a few minutes here just because it's important, I think, to understand what's happening on the back end of LinkedIn and how that will affect not only your results, but the recruiter perspective as well. Up here, when you're in profile editing mode, this is where you're going to be able to edit that custom URL. You'll also be able to edit whether or not your profile is visible. So sometimes when I need to make some major updates, or students are, updating at a time and they're not quite ready to re-release it into the wild just yet, they'll turn off their visibility, make these changes and updates, and turn it back on so that your entire network isn't sort of notified of the fact that it's under construction. Also important, the visibility of your profile and network. If you're someone who really wants to know who's looking at your profile, you can absolutely keep it on name and headline. But personally, I'm someone who uses LinkedIn for a lot of research. I like to do career research, looking at career pathing, seeing where alums have started their careers and where they are now. And it's better for me to be in private mode. So I want you to know that this is how you can sort of set that to private. You give up the fact that, now you're not going to be able to see who sees you. But again, that tends to be less important. So if, again, you want to do some private browsing, this is the setting that you would use to do so. Also important, your public visibility. Many students neglect to realize that there is this setting here, and you need to go in and intentionally set the level of information that a recruiter or someone else who hasn't connected with you yet is able to see. So oftentimes when I'm working with students, I'll be looking for them and not be able to find their profiles. Or I'm only able to see a little bit and they're confused as to why. And I said, let's take a look at the back settings here, because that's absolutely going to determine who sees your information and how much they see. This is also just a quick snapshot of editing that custom URL. You'll notice that when you first make your LinkedIn profile, all those numbers and letters after it, you want to clean that right up. Your recruiter will look for that little extra attention to detail and for you to sort of claim that brand. You can then copy that URL and make sure it's an active link right on your resume. That does not affect ATS. The job seeking preferences section is very important as well. And we won't go through this in detail, but you can signal interest to companies that recruiters you've created job alerts for. So for example, if Epsilon is my dream company, I'm not only going to follow Epsilon, but I'm going to create an alert that lets me know every time Epsilon posts a job that I might be interested in. And takes that a step further, it's going to let the Epsilon recruiters know that I have signaled my interest in Epsilon. And so, little adjustments like this can really go a tremendous way in ensuring, again, the visibility of your information. The preferences, save search and alerts tab, also very important, specifically as it relates to the job search. It's here where the intuitive nature of LinkedIn really starts to kick in. These suggested job searches that you see on the bottom of my screen, that's LinkedIn. I didn't manually put those in. They saw the types of things that I was reflecting on my profile and suggested those searches for me. So for folks who are sort of newer to career pathing, or what can I do with this degree? What do I want to do next? LinkedIn will give you a little bit of a push. It will also recommend jobs for you based on, again, those insights that they're seeing from within your profile in other areas. You can see here on the left, there's a number of things that you can do here, including salary research, skills assessments, interview prep. Seems like a long time ago now, and it is, but LinkedIn was purchased by Microsoft in 2016, 2017 for $26 billion, $26 billion. So it's not going away anytime soon. It's really critically important that we understand all of its features and use them to the best of our ability. Let's take a look at some profiles, at least from my perspective, that really impress. One thing I find students neglect to do is to take advantage of the customization that this background provides. Again, you want to be thinking about your LinkedIn profile as a brochure, that visual attraction to front cover of a book to make you want to read more. And there's no hard and fast rules about what imagery you can use. It can be a piece of artwork, a travel photo. As long as it's high resolution and professional, the sky's the limit there. The other thing that you'll notice Ms. Thompson did is indicate on the back end of her recruiting of her profile rather that she's open to work, and then indicated what types of roles that she would be most interested in being contacted about. The reason that's effective is because obviously it's very, very visible, and it quickly will show your recruiter that intention, keeping in mind that when recruiters are searching for profiles, they only see business analyst from, and her headline rather, and up. They won't see any of the other information. So to show up in searches by folks who are using the recruiter product, and that is recruiters who are paying extra to be able to use LinkedIn as a sourcing tool, makes it very, very clear to them into two piles: who's looking, who isn't. You'll also notice here that on the top right-hand side is your employer and your school. And for anyone who is looking at your profile and seeing University of Massachusetts Amherst, I would change that to put in Eisenberg School of Management, UMass Amherst. You'll still get the UMass in there, but you'll be able to take advantage of the Eisenberg branding. Not just that, though. That means that, again, the system is intuitively now suggesting other Eisenberg alums, business-related postings, other content like that. But important that we make that designation for the system to pick up on that, if that makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about the next piece that we come up to on the LinkedIn profile, and that is the About section. We're going to spend some time on this today because it is probably one of the most important sections within your profile. It's here where you want to communicate intent. It's here where you want to let the reader in a little bit about who you are, what you're passionate about, what your skills and experiences are. And it's almost like titling a paper. You almost kind of need to write, the rest of the profile and then see where the brand sort of falls out. If it takes you a while to noodle this, don't worry, it takes everybody a while to noodle this piece. But a good place to start is typically adapting your elevator pitch, allowing you to quickly share who you are, what you do, and your goal for the interaction. The most important thing to keep in mind here, besides demonstrating that clear communication, is that you really want to provide a way to break the ice, but allow that access to the recruiter to really see who you are. It's that personalization that takes it one step further from that resume. So if you haven't written an elevator pitch before, that is a good place to start. My feeling is most folks probably have at this point. But again, another sort of way to go about attacking that section. So some more best practices for it. I would write in first person narrative. Again, this is a demonstration of your clear communication skills. We're going for brief, comprehensive yet concise. Comprehensive yet concise is one of, to me, the most challenging things about writing. That can look like 1 to 3 relevant skimmable paragraphs. We're not so prescriptive that we say it's got to be this number of paragraphs and this is the information that you need to include. It's good if this reflects your own personal, brand and profile, but very, very important that it's relevant and skimmable. Considering how quickly recruiters scan our information, this will ensure that we are really getting as much as we can from that very brief interaction. Be creative, personable, engaging. You can indicate functions or industries of interest. What I would not do, though, is get too focused in this section to the point where we exclude some other things that we may not have thought about. Some recruiters looking for positions that don't exactly fit there, but that you would absolutely entertain. So I think, again, general functions, industries of interest, but maybe not so specific that it could potentially leave out some other functions. And I always like to include my technical proficiency whenever I can. It is one of the most important things that your recruiters will be seeking, especially as you will be, in the MBA program. They know that you're going to come out with the latest and greatest of tech skills. So you want to make sure that you are leading with that for your future employer. I included some prompts here to help sort of draw out some of the information. If we had more time, we could certainly get into some groups, but for the purpose of efficiency today, I believe what I'll do is just give you my email address and offer that if you'd like to work on this with me, I'm happy to. But what are you currently doing? How do you combine this new, these new skills, this new knowledge or expertise with the experience you had before to emerge stronger, better, faster to your future employer? How will you use your new expertise moving forward? What relevant skills, education, internships, certifications, licensure, employment do you have? What makes you distinctive? Again, this is where we want to differentiate from other candidates. And perhaps most importantly, how will you add value? It's very common that candidates, job searching, interviewing is such a nerve-wracking process that we get very, very focused on ourselves, right? What am I going to say? How am I going to look? When we really do need to be thinking a little bit more about that recruiter perspective. They are gauging fit. They are gauging, okay, I know I have this existing team. How is this potential individual going to not only collaborate with that existing team, but to add value above and beyond what we have right now? And so you want to keep that perspective in mind as you're writing this about section.
Hey, Rachel,
yes.
Would this be an appropriate moment just to take a quick pause? We've had a couple of questions in the chat.
Perfect.
Maybe other people would like to chime in. This has been super informative. One of the questions, and if people would like to ask questions themselves and unmute, they may, or you could type them in the chat if you're trying to be private and don't want to use your voice. But one of the questions is about the open to work option that you showed a couple of slides ago, and whether that's visible to everyone who views it on LinkedIn or not. And then I would add to it sort of the value of using open to work period when you're on the job market.
Excellent question. And for those of us who may always sort of be at the ready, we might not be actively recruiting for other positions, but we want to stay open. There are absolutely ways that you can, there are two options here really. You can do completely transparent, open to work, green border around your profile, or there's another setting that you can click that says, make this information only available to recruiters. So that is the setting that you want to select if you don't necessarily need to be broadcasting that you're open to work, but that you want to show up in those recruiter searches and sourcing. So you will see that setting in the same place. Excellent question. Great.
Thank you.
Yes.
Super helpful. And then there's the question about putting the Eisenberg School on LinkedIn, and I would say also on the resume if you've only got a few classes under your belt that you've just started the program, in fact, like you're right at the beginning.
Yes. So I'm sorry, Holly, what's the question? How should they handle that if they're only?
Yeah, is it okay to get it on your resume or LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And, including relevant coursework is a wonderful way not only to get keywords and industry jargon in there, but to effectively, brand and start to show that transition. And so I think that including both Eisenberg School of Management and UMass Amherst is very, very important. But also I think that when you are in early stages of the program, you can certainly add relevant coursework, and same with the LinkedIn profile. But if you have some things that are coming up in spring, for example, you have project management, maybe you have a business applications Python course coming up, and you're recruiting now, but you want to be able to show them that down the line, this is what's coming. You can absolutely include that coursework, and in a parens, put in a spring 2022 right next to that, so that you're differentiating. When recruiters recruit folks who are continuing their education, they do so very much with the understanding that you're not going to You don't have everything yet that you're going to be able to bring to this position once you've completed that degree. So giving them a preview of a little bit of that marketability helps them feel comfortable and confident that you'll have the exposure you need to those topics. Does that make sense?
I think that's great. That's really helpful. I'd actually answered the questions in the chat, but by bringing them to you, I was hoping that you would say even more, which you did. So
okay, great.
that's great. Thank you. If anyone else has something they'd like to ask now, feel free. Otherwise, we can continue on. And again, we can be interrupted or we'll open up for Q&A at the end. I think you can.
Good to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, great questions though. This will be a little bit more useful once you have the presentation in your hands, but what I've done is clip what I think are some very effective about sections that communicate brand and intent. And I've tried to include some sort of diverse candidate profiles in here so that hopefully you can look and find something that you relate to, but you'll notice that none of the examples that I've put on here are incredibly lengthy. They don't go on and on, but they do include sort of the, what am I doing now? How am I going to pair it with what I've done before in order to be that much better, faster, stronger? And what are you interested in doing with it moving forward? Now, I work also with a lot of career changers who really want to move away, absolutely away from what they were doing previously. And there's absolutely ways that we can brand that too. And if we do, this is a conversation for a different day, but emphasizing those transferable skills, those things that you learned in your former life that can be successfully applied moving forward, as opposed to being so direct by saying, I'm going to use this other information. You can use this to move away from it as well. And that can be a very effective way to control the brand. I'll bring up one more slide here. And I apologize, the first one is not high resolution, but I wanted to include it. Passionate marketing leader who's able to think strategically about long-term goals while handling the execution of day-to-day tactical marketing initiatives and sales strategies. Creative problem solving, identifying ways to get things accomplished more effectively and efficiently. Pragmatic marketing certified. And some key strengths here. So you're going to see product launches, competitive analysis, sales enablement, keywords, 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 jargon, and sending a very, very clear message to that recruiter that you know what this industry is about. Another one below, a clip from a student that I work with in the Master of Science in Business Analytics program. And this is a great type of about section for any folks who are maybe newer to the MBA program, maybe didn't get work experience in between. I know when I was doing my online MBA, there were students from all over the world in every level of career. Some of us who were brand new, some who had been, practicing their careers for 55 years, everything in between. There really is no prescriptive formula here. But again, I would absolutely lean on myself, Nick, Holly, anyone within career services, because it's a great idea to sort of have this vetted and run it by some folks. Again, don't expect to write it and have it come out perfectly the first time. You really want to noodle it and work with it. Okay, so those education and experience sections. And the education section, again, you'll see that Eisenberg School of Management there, and you would want to obviously reflect that MBA. There's also some places where you can include sort of free text. You could include GPA, relevant coursework. You could put in, project experience and things like that within the education section. But one of the things that's nice about LinkedIn is it will offer you extra sections for things like certifications, licensure, coursework. So really your personal preference as to how you set it up. And this other one here with a sales associate for Ann Taylor, I simply put this in as a demonstration of the language, of that sort of cover letter language, if you will, that will create that interpersonal connection with your recruiter. It isn't that your recruiter can't surmise for themselves what a sales associate does at Ann Taylor. You want to take advantage of the opportunity to express to that potential employer that you get what this is about. You've got those customer service skills that you're ready to lend to that next role. you have the organizational skills to bring this project to the next level. But you're sort of taking advantage of that way to communicate that a little bit differently and more robustly than, again, that very abbreviated, almost punctuated resume. Your activity section. This is a big one. And we're going to talk in a minute about following and joining and how those things affect your timeline, but your recruiters will absolutely see your activity. And it actually isn't that hard to appear pretty engaged and immersed. Certainly you can publish, you can make your own content and things like that. I typically at this stage in life don't have a lot of time to be sitting down and writing original content. So the way that I engage is to like and share posts that I think will be relevant to my followers for a variety of reasons. And again, that activity is right there in that recruiter's face as soon as they begin to review your profile. So they're going to use that as sort of a way to see, what are they interested in? Are they following this industry? Are they sort of demonstrating that they know, through either professional associations, industry associations, following certain companies, sharing information? Again, really, really easy to do that when you have ensured that you're following groups and joining groups and following companies and other things like that. A snapshot here of my activity, and the recruiter can also see articles, posts, documents, and right over here, this interest section, they're looking to see who I'm following. So one of the great things about LinkedIn is that it gives you a little bit of space to express who you really are. It doesn't have to stay within these, solid double lines that is business or that is accounting. They're trying to get a feel for who you are and what you're interested in. So if you are following thought leaders or folks, leading industries or simply anyone that you find fascinating, again, you're sort of teaching other people about your personality and controlling the information that's coming to your timeline, making it that much easier for you to like and share because you'll be naturally interested in the content that's coming up. The way that we do this, again, is to follow companies and join groups. That's going to allow you to see relevant job and internship postings. Very important, stay up to date on industry trends and development. I don't have time to poll the group, but if I did, I would say, how many people have been in an interview before and had your recruiter say, so what can you tell me about this industry? What are you interested in? Why is it that you want to move your career in this direction? This is a great way to do a little bit of a Cliff's Notes there on your industry trends and development. It provides you topics for conversation during interviews and allows you to like and share those relevant posts. I pulled out a couple of specific ones here. I focused on public administration just for an example. And you'll see here that every industry, every professional association has a presence on LinkedIn. You can follow them, you can view their jobs, you can look through the group and request to join. Typically, it's a very quick turnaround time when you request to join a group. But what that does is show your recruiter this individual is making efforts to immerse. They're making efforts to best prepare themselves for either continued work in this industry or for their new career. And that's a great way for you to do all of those things. Again, if you haven't already, I would absolutely join both the Eisenberg School of Management official alumni groups and the University of Massachusetts alumni groups. And you can see down here from the interests that are shared, I really have a wide variety of things that I pay attention to on LinkedIn. And again, it makes it that much easier for me to engage, but give some folks some insight as to who I am. I know this is a topic that's also near and dear to Nick's heart, so please, Nick, do jump in. But industry and professional associations, again, are one of the most underutilized resources for all things career development, going way beyond even networking. Thinking about your specialization or your career, there will be an industry or professional association, and you can find those with a good Google search. For these purposes, I've highlighted SHRM, the Society for Human Resources Management, and the Project Management Institute, PMI, as relevant to, I know, a lot of our coursework in the MBA program. But what you'll see here is that there are a number of ways that you can use these websites or even student membership in order to expand your networks, earn certifications, find out about jobs that you may not have known about otherwise. So for example, almost all of them have a career section. You can see over here in SHRM's career preparation and planning, your professional development, career expert insights. You're going to be able to find out so much more in this very focused environment than you would when just out on the web. There are also student memberships often. So if you know that you're going to need to join a professional association or that's an industry standard, you may want to look now at the student membership level because they will grandfather you in. Otherwise, plenty of content for you to take advantage of within this platform. But one of the interesting things about it is that recruiters will often post jobs only here because they only want them to get to that select audience that they know is immersed, that they know is really taking that extra effort to really speak to the industry. I wanted to include just a little bit of information on LinkedIn Learning, again, because I think it's such a fabulous resource, but I wanted to specifically point out how this can really kick your profile up a notch, if you will. And to find this, I've linked it here within the slides, but you can simply Google UMass LinkedIn Learning. Again, in-depth courses, completely free. I'll give you a little bit of a visual of what this looks like here. When you pop into LinkedIn Learning, you're going to have the opportunity to indicate some of your interests, whether that's project management, marketing, personal branding, cheese. LinkedIn Learning literally has every topic you could imagine, with courses, with workshops, with learning paths, which are free, multi-hour, multi-module learning paths. The thing that they all have in common is that you can turn around and badge them directly to your LinkedIn profile and then reflect them within your resume. In the age of COVID, it is incredibly important, because we haven't been able to physically walk into buildings for the most part, that we show recruiters what we've been up to. Yes, I was handcuffed a bit on my professional development because of this global pandemic, but I continued to put my best foot forward. I took advantage of resources that will allow me to continue my professional development and more effectively compete in this time. And we began doing this as soon as, March 2020, as soon as really the US started to react to this pandemic. And so now we've been, instructing students to do this, and recruiters are loving it. They're absolutely eating it up. The other reason I say that you might want to, include something like this is to be able to bring a little something extra, even if you don't have experience in it specifically. So for example, you're reading job descriptions, and I mentioned Python earlier as that #1 skill set. I can tell people all day long that you need Python. I don't know Python. I know enough about it to get through the conversation with you, but I can't sit down and really dig into its functionalities. If you're looking at a job description and you're saying, okay, we're doing that check and balance, right? They want this, and this. I have this. Ooh, don't have those two things. Well, what can I do in order to be more competitive, to infuse that into my resume, into my credentials, to call it out in the interview, to include it in the cover letter? You can go on LinkedIn Learning. So for example, you look and they say, experience with Python preferred, and you don't have it. Well, go to LinkedIn Learning and watch some of the Python coursework. You'll be able to add that to your resume. Badge it again. It will become a permanent part of your LinkedIn profile and show up in your timeline. But then you'll be able to say in that interview, and when they say, do you have any experience with Python? We don't want to lie or make anything up. They call us out on that pretty quickly. But what we can do is say, as you can see from my experience, I haven't had a lot of experience, with Python, but what I did was take a LinkedIn Learning course. And now I have a good understanding of how an organization would use it, or the basic functionalities. And so you're able to sort of fill in a little bit of what you might perceive as a gap from their perspective. And they absolutely love, again, that intention, that you purposely taking your own time to be better, faster. It's all in the vein of sort of continuous self-improvement. We talk a lot in the MBA program about systems improvement and software improvement. This is where we're sort of turning that lens back on ourselves and showing them that we're not going to be okay to just sort of sit there and stagnate. We're always going to be putting our energy into being better. Okay. Can't neglect to include the alumni connection, incredibly important. And to find our alums, you can go right to the school page and you'll click on alumni on the left-hand side. You'll then bring up thousands and you'll want to whittle down by keyword search. I use Epsilon as an example because then you can sort of specifically drill in if Epsilon is your target company and see everyone who did an internship there, everyone who's currently working there, everyone who worked there in the past, and begin to do some outreach and connectivity as it relates to your candidacy. You can also do the opposite. Go right to the Epsilon official page, and instead of saying alumni there, it's going to say people, because it's not an institution for higher learning. It's a company. And you do the same thing there. You can whittle down by UMass, you can whittle down by Eisenberg. Skill sets, a lot of really, really great information able to for you to accept, excuse me, access there. And this last slide I just included as a visual, excuse me, of what the recruiter sees. And this sort of speaks to the importance of that professional photo, of that headline, but also emphasizes how, they're not necessarily going to get the full picture. We need to sort of engage them in, and I hate to pick on John here, but as you're sort of looking through here, I tend to skip over John's pretty quickly because it's not making that connection for me. So keep that in mind as it relates to that recruiter perspective and the importance of sort of the way that you're first going to have that brand emerge. Okay. Now I'm going to stop my share here, and I would love to either open it up for questions, or Nick, certainly if there are things that you would like to include, I would be very happy to have you lend your expertise. But
Actually, Rachel, I'd just like to add one thing.
Sure.
First, I want to compliment you. The presentation is excellent. You're hitting all the bases, no question.
Thank you, sir.
But when you talk about professional organizations, which I think are often misunderstood by students in general, and I think sometimes online MBA students, only because of you're involved in your work, you're not necessarily close to the academic environment, and you don't always hear this, but the three benefits of being associated with professional organizations, number one is certainly access to the job boards and the career insights that Rachel already mentioned. But the second thing that's very important is each of those organizations in one form or another has a type of regional roundtable or regional expertise aspect to its membership. So if you're living in Massachusetts, but you're thinking about being in Atlanta or Chicago or the West Coast or wherever, if you're involved in these professional organizations, you can link to local people on your turf, let's say, but you can also identify significant players who are working with significant firms and doing jobs that you find very interesting or part of your personal set of goals. And you are encouraged, not only can you are encouraged to link to them in the regional roundtable format. And then the other thing, and this has been throughout Rachel's conversation here, but almost weekly, these professional organizations via their website are publishing white papers or papers that are reflecting current thinking about current trends within the industry or within the function that this professional organization is aligned with. And they're not written by faculty or professors. They're written by people who are doing the work and who are encountering some of the upside, or frankly, some of the downside associated with those trends. that information is so valuable to you in the form of awareness when you get asked a question in an interview, or even when you're having a networking conversation. There isn't really questioning going on, but there's sort of intel or insight that's being exchanged between you and the person you're networking with, or the networker to you. And it just gives you a vocabulary, a set of insights, an awareness of what is currently happening, the language and sort of the functional reality of those situations. So it's extremely helpful what Rachel is telling you with regard to professional organizations.
Excellent points, Nick. Thank you.
Indeed.
Especially
Thank
the
you both.
regionality too. The regionality, that's huge. And by the way, I apologize, but Nick reminded me of something else. If you are looking to change locations, if you've gone on the back end of your job settings, it will also allow you to indicate different parts of the US or world, quite frankly. So if you really want to focus in on those regions, you can affect your profile in that way as well. And, you know, the workforce is changing. You can absolutely indicate that you're open to remote work as well, contract work, temporary work, gives you a lot of options there. But great point about the regionality as well, Nick. Thank you.
Super. Thank you both. I would like to second what Nick had said about your presentation, Rachel. That was really super.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. I hope everybody finds it helpful. I just saw an email pop up about a chat rather about sharing my email. I am putting that in the chat right now. You can also find me in iConnect. And as I mentioned, I am happy to work with anyone who might find it useful to dig a little bit deeper. Any other questions I can take for folks?
We've mentioned iConnect a few times here, and not everyone may know what that is. So I have popped its URL in the chat so people can click on it and go to it.
Wonderful.
It is our new career professional development website. We launched it in late August, and we are adding more and more materials to it, as well as enhancements of third-party pieces, such as a direct connection to LinkedIn Learning. We'll be bringing in classes that might be most appropriate for people with different interests. So you should definitely check it out and set up a profile. Rachel has pulled it up. Rachel, do you want to say a few words since you've shared your screen so people can see it?
Oh, certainly. Just to give a visual orientation here. Up on the top right-hand side, that's where you're going to be able to log in, and you'll do so with single sign-on. So very, very easy for you to get in here. As Holly called out, there are direct connections here to Handshake, LinkedIn Learning. But these topic areas will also be very important to you. See here, we have diversity and inclusion resources, a tremendous amount of career resources within the platform itself, including videos, downloadable guides. Tip for success is to use your filters aptly. So to really kind of cut through content to get specifically what you need, select those filters and apply them. You can find other information about jobs and internships and other actually, I'm happy that we scrolled over here because I wanted to make mention of the Business Communication Center. My colleague, Professor Brian Hentz, was good enough to lend his expertise to this presentation, and just a phenomenal communicator. And I would encourage you to seek him out, especially as it relates to the About section of your profile. Really, really incredible resources, but you want to sort of know where to look. So I'll just scroll down here a little bit so you can get a little bit more. And again, I'm not logged in yet, so you're not going to see specific MBA information here, but you can get a visual for some of our resources, the career videos and the information within. And again, that's where you can find my contact information if that's helpful.
Not only your contact information that's there, you were in the About section, and you can find a little something on all of us who are in the Office of Career Success, or who are sort of in your corner under the About section, and get contact information from us as well. One thing to piggyback on what you said about the filters and using them,
Mm.
we are working on retagging some of our resources. So one thing, if you're not necessarily finding what you want, you can go into the open search function and just type in the keywords that make sense to you, such as MBA, to make sure it's the right piece for your audience. And then what you might be looking for after that, whether it's LinkedIn or cover letter or some other kind of resource that would be helpful to you.
That's helpful, Holly. Thank you. And just to give folks an idea here of what these filters look like, I was finding myself doing the filters and then forgetting to apply them. So go through here and filter as you see appropriate, apply those filters. And again, your results will be curated to the tons of topics that you're interested in.
And
Thanks,
the site is
Holly.
growing, growing, growing. So you'll always want to go back and see what's new on it.
Yes, and I'll also point out, thank you, Holly, that the search function is up here on the right-hand side. It's the little looking glass, the magnifying glass that we're all used to seeing, but unless you're looking for it up there, it can be easy to miss. So just look for it on that top right-hand side there.
We have a little over 5 minutes left. Do we have any questions that people would like to raise, either using your voices or typing in the chat? It's a small group. This is being recorded. For those who joined late, we'll be sharing the recording on iConnect. And also the slides that Rachel had today will be delivered to you as a PDF and posted on iConnect. So you can get this later if you want to review it again. People are at different stages and thinking about how they want to leverage LinkedIn, and we totally get that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions, but again, my email is in the chat and I would absolutely encourage you to explore iConnect and connect with folks accordingly. If you don't get the right person first, it's okay. We can always get you over to where you need to be. But an incredible amount of information there, incredible resource for our students. Again, I thank you very, very much for taking your time, your lunch hour with us today. And my best to you and your families. And have a great rest of the week.
And a lovely holiday, Thanksgiving in this country
yes.
coming up. I will, great, somebody has put in, this was very helpful, Rachel. I hope you see that in the chat.
You're most welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for coming, everyone. And I should put in a plug for our next workshop. It is with Brian Hintz. So that's the colleague in business communications that Rachel mentioned a little while ago, Professor Brian Hintz, and he's going to be talking about cover letters. So your cover letters story. That's next month on the 14th, again at noon until 1 o'clock. And same thing goes, open for questions. We'll also be recording and we'll post slides and things like that as well. So
that will be a must attend, Holly. That'll be an excellent session.
Yep, we'll be there.
Great.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Thank you all. Have a great
Take good care.
holiday.